Should have worn my Pink Floyd shirt, but I only had time to change my pants.
You could have. All right. Well, on that note, let's get going.
That's good.
Oh, yeah. Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of When Records Ruled, the podcast where we share our love of rock music and pop culture from the 70s and 80s and take a few B-side tracks down memory lane along the way. So get out those liner notes and put a bookmark in that Sears catalog toy section because it's time to hit the play button. I'm your host, David Norris, and joining me on this flashback musical road trip, emphasis on flashback maybe, huh? Are my good friends Brian Strom and Lance Schwartz.
Hey, that's me.
That's right. Have you guys made out your Christmas wish list and marked the appropriate pages in the catalog yet?
Oh, I loved that catalog.
Yeah.
That was so fun.
That one and JCPenney.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had both. And we also had one, there was a local store called LaBelle's, and it was about half the size, but it was more cool stuff because there was no clothes in it.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Get to the good stuff.
Yeah.
Skip the clothes.
Yeah. Yep, that was a fun thing as a kid.
Yep.
Now you just sit on your phone and scroll, and I can't imagine how boring that must be for kids.
Right? Didn't get a chance to highlight and circle. And
Yeah, cut them out.
Cut them out.
Bring them to Santa Claus. Here's pictures of what I want.
Exactly. All right, for today's episode, we will be discussing the album Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. We'll hear what was happening around the time of the album's release, wrap it up with a personal rating of the album, and then we'll end the show with our Remember When segment. Before we get into talking about the album, though, we have something else to briefly discuss. We all attended a Brit Floyd concert together a few weeks back. What did you guys think of that show?
It was awesome. That was the second time I had seen him, and I would go see him again.
Yeah, same here. Second time. Did we go together the first time?
We did not.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, the second time
for go with?
Because I bought the ticket on the street. Actually, I got in for free.
Must have went with somebody else.
Yeah.
That's kind of the
some
way.
Some poor guy
these
looked at me and said, "Do you need a ticket?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "It's your lucky day." Handed me a ticket.
Perfect.
Yeah.
But it was probably the same show we were at.
Yeah. Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, Dave, I would definitely go again. I've seen them and Aussie Floyd. They're both very good shows. Kind of think Brit Floyd may be a bit better. Although I have heard, but I have not verified, that they may share some mutual members at times.
Right.
Oh,
I heard that too.
I did not hear that.
I think the director maybe came from the Australian Pink Floyd.
Okay.
And is doing this, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. You could be.
I doubt it, but
You may be right, though.
That was my
Maybe
first.
crazy.
I may be crazy. Oh,
That was
now
my
we're doing
first
that album.
First Brit Floyd show, and I was pretty impressed.
Yeah.
I mean, full-on production.
Yeah,
Lights
really?
and lasers. I mean, that was the first
Lasers.
laser show associated with a concert I've been to, and that was really cool.
What? Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
None of the other ones have had kind of a laser
Yeah.
part, laser aspect to that. It's probably some lasers around, but I mean, this was truly a laser show
Yeah,
too.
Yeah.
for sure.
During certain parts of it.
And
Sure.
they just sounded phenomenal.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, it could have been Pink Floyd for all I know.
Yeah.
Since I've never
There was a
seen
couple of them, like Us and Them was just like
Ooh.
spot on. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the vocals were pretty tight. I mean, they were all terrific musicians.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone sees this band coming to their hometown, you know what? Prices are pretty reasonable too.
Yeah.
I think you'll really enjoy it. It's almost a 3-hour show. And
The only thing I was disappointed in is, since it was the 50th anniversary of Dark Side of the Moon, I wish they would have played the album all the way through.
the way it's meant to be played, yes.
Yeah. And that still would leave them an hour and a half to do other stuff.
Yeah.
I was
All the
really
other stuff.
hoping for that, actually.
And
I
I
was
think they
going in
did-
thinking like, this is what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And then they'll supplement with what other hits they want to
Right.
perform later.
Yeah. And
So-
they did play a majority of the album.
Yeah.
It just wasn't, it was just dispersed throughout the entire show.
Yeah. It was okay.
Yeah. It was okay.
That aspect anyway.
Yeah.
I'll live with it.
Oh yeah.
I'll live with that. Okay. Now to get us going, Lance has some details to share about the album that we're going to be discussing tonight, Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. Here we go.
Yeah, Dark Side of the Moon is, believe it or not, the 8th studio album from Pink Floyd, released on March 1st, 1973 on Capitol Records in the United States. Apparently it was developed during some live performances before the actual recording began. And what I found to be really interesting is it was recorded at that time called EMI Studio, but it's now Abbey Road Studios in London. Did you guys know that Alan Parsons was involved with this project?
Yeah.
Interesting, huh?
Yes.
Says he was responsible for a lot of the, was he engineer or producer? Engineer. So
produced by Pink Floyd.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah.
A little bit of talent in that band.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But he was responsible for a lot of the, they say, sonic aspects. When you think about this album, it's full of, I would say at the time, experimental sort of stuff. The synthesizers and probably some overdubbing and that sort of thing. So kudos to Alan Parsons, who had a what I would say a very successful solo career on his own after this. So
I got a quick quote from Alan Parsons.
Yeah.
Who also was engineer for the Beatles.
Right. Yeah.
So, and this is him discussing the studio habits of the Beatles and Pink Floyd. Ooh. He said, they both liked to use the studio to its fullest, and they were always looking for new effects and new sounds. That was the beauty of working with those guys. There was always new horizons to discover in sound.
Cool.
I mean, that's like, I mean, you listen to the stuff he did with them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's seeing what's the latest video that came out, the really long one from the Beatles.
Get Back.
Thank you. Okay. It was mind blank, but showing how they work in the studio a little bit in their process, I can imagine it's pretty similar to Pink Floyd's too, where they know their craft and they know the devices and things that, will help them get the sound instead of relying on someone else to help them get that.
Mm-hmm.
So it also says in some of my research here that Parsons was actually assigned as their studio engineer.
Oh,
so it's kind of happenstance.
Wow,
interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Okay, I guess I'll do it.
Yeah. Pink Floyd. Who? No.
Well, when you're talking about the Beatles, he was involved with Abbey Road and Let It Be. So a couple of their later albums.
So around this time, I mean, this is a couple years after.
Yep, exactly. Mm-hmm. Well, of course, Dark Side of the Moon became one of the best-selling albums of all time.
Of course.
Top 25, in the United States itself. Get this. It held the number one spot only 1 week in the U.S., but it was on the charts for 736 non-consecutive weeks.
Oh, man.
736?
So what does that equate into years? It was like 18 years or something.
Unbelievable.
I mean, I remember as a kid, as a teenager, I would be in a record store and I'd always grab the Rolling Stones and I'd always like to look and see what was on the charts at the time. And I remember, wow, Pink Floyd is still on here for that album from 73. And, this is like the mid to later 80s.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, that's insane.
Like, we'll get into why that is maybe a little later, but are there any other albums that you can think of?
No.
Maybe a Christmas album of some sort, but probably
not that long, though.
Not that long.
Not that long.
No. So as of April 2013, the album had sold 9,502,000 copies in the U.S. since 1991. Wow. 1991. Unbelievable. It's also estimated that total sales for Dark Side of the Moon worldwide are at 45 million. And at one point, it's been said that 1 in every 14 people in the U.S. under the age of 50 is estimated to own or to have owned a copy of Dark Side of the Moon. 1 in every 14?
Wow.
A lot of these bands from that time and even into the 80s, when CDs started coming out, people are rebuying it. So that's how these numbers get so high.
Exactly.
That's true.
You buy it multiple times, and who didn't want to get this on CD once that came out? You're like, this is the one you want to get the headphones on and just really listen to. And if you have it on CD, you're hearing,
And then you could
you're hearing even more stuff than you never heard before.
You could take your LP player out of the car and put it in the CD player.
Yes.
Much better quality.
It's
Less
really hard to
skipping.
get it. Yeah. When you mention that, it's interesting to say that I do have 3 copies of this.
Right.
At home.
You do? Yeah.
I've got a
Wow.
CD copy. I've got an old scratchy copy, and I purchased a new remastered copy.
The
Okay.
LPs.
Yeah.
Wow.
I would say I probably listen to the CD more than anything because it sounds so good.
Oh, yeah.
And no, they released a remastered recently because this was
This year,
the 50th anniversary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about Waters and his remake? Nah.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, briefly,
not
if you
worth it.
want to, yeah. I think what he did is horrible. It's not been reviewed very highly.
No, I would concur. Well, what do you guys know about singles off this album? Did you hear anything about
I think Just Money was
Just
the
Money,
only one
yeah.
released as a single.
2.
Time?
The first single was Money. Second one was Us and Them.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. We'll get into it a little bit later, but it's hard to say there really is a single because a lot of Pink Floyd music, it flows together.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, definitely.
And most of this album you're hearing on the radio.
Right.
Yep. Maybe minus some of the more obscure instrumentals, bridging songs. But otherwise, yeah.
And they do a good job of fading songs into another anyway. So
Right.
it's less abrupt when you actually listen to it on the radio.
Yeah. Which is why, as we're going through listening to this again, you have no idea that it's changed to a different song title.
No, exactly.
You still thought it was the same song, just the little
Different
extended
part.
end of the song.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, it's a new song.
Yeah. That was tough.
Critically, it's received a lot of accolades, especially if you think about Rolling Stone as being a good source for album reviews. They in 2003 and 2012 had lists of the 500 greatest albums of all time, and it placed 43 both years and slipped to 55 in 2020. So apparently since 2012 through 2020, there must have been, 12 better albums that came out.
I have a hard time believing that.
I do too. Or maybe
It's just a younger critics.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
You're like 43. No, nope.
Rolling Stone also listed it as the best progressive rock album of all time.
I'd agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
For sure. So that's a little background, guys. I probably could go on and on and on, but
I'm sure we will as we get into it.
all right.
There's more to come. All right, to give us an even better frame of reference, Brian is here with some information and fun facts on what was happening around the time this album was released.
May 31st, 1973. Some of the top bands of the time were Loggins and Messina, Alice Cooper,
Yeah.
War,
Why can't we be friends?
Steely Dan,
Yeah.
Stevie Wonder.
Nice diverse list.
Yeah. Top 3 songs. And this kind of surprised me. I'm thinking, okay, 1973. Yeah, I know music from 1973. There's also tons of music I don't know. So I was expecting to, hear some songs up here that were not
Yeah.
something that I knew. I was wrong.
Okay.
Number 3, Daniel.
Elton John.
Elton John. Number 2, My Love.
Paul McCartney and Wings.
Correct. And number 1, Frankenstein.
Edgar Winter.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun,
So-
dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, so 3,
Wow.
still staples today.
Yeah.
All right, top shows of the time, The Waltons, Sanford and Son.
Can we whistle the Walton tune? Anyone?
I just actually watched an episode of Sanford and Son a little while ago.
Oh, really?
It's hilarious. It's awesome. Yep.
$6 Million Man,
Oh, yeah.
Good Times.
Yeah.
And here, a little music, the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour.
Yeah, I remember
Wow,
watching that
okay.
as a kid.
Yeah.
That's a nice collection. You
Yep.
can watch them all probably on Pluto TV on the classic.
Yes, thank you to our
section.
sponsor.
Again, I got to contact someone at Pluto, man. I'm telling you.
All right, and then some of the top movies, a couple music ones here too also. American Graffiti.
Mm-hmm.
Great soundtrack.
With a young Ron Howard.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Sting and Jesus Christ Superstar.
Yeah. All these are really big. I mean, iconic things
Yeah.
that you're mentioning,
doubt.
songs and plays and movies.
And then lastly, some of the toys around this time, chopper bikes. Do you remember
Yes.
those?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, man.
I kind of wanted one of
wanted
those.
one.
Those
Big
are
old
difficult to
handlebars
ride.
and-
Yeah.
Yeah, the
I'm sure.
little wheel in the front,
Yeah.
I bet. Yeah. Fun novelty until you wanted to go back to your BMX, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, right. $6 Million Man and Woman Dolls.
I want to
Who
see I
had
maybe
one?
had one because you looked through the back of his head and you had
Looked
like
through
the
his
little
eye.
Yes, you
Yep.
looked through his eye like you
I
had a
had that
bionic eye.
one.
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I did.
Those are worth a couple $100 now.
I don't have any more.
No, I don't either. And then lastly, Shrinky Dinks.
Oh, gosh. We did those all the time when I was a kid.
They are that old?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
believe it. I put them in the oven and
I never did those.
we
when I
make
was
Christmas
younger.
ornaments.
Oh,
Chris,
yeah,
yep,
okay.
yep.
Yeah.
We used to have
Yeah.
some of those. Or you'd make like a keychain.
Yeah.
Or something.
Cool keychain.
Wonder if they make Shrinky Dinks anymore.
I'm sure they do.
They're probably bad for you or something. And you can't.
Well, if you eat them, yeah.
You huff all the burning plastic.
That's
I don't know.
right.
Yeah.
It was
They
fun
did
though,
have a distinct aroma
It
when
did.
you made them. Yeah.
if you turn the light on in the oven, you'd watch them just kind of go
Yeah.
shrivel up. That's pretty good.
Well, guys, it's us and them. And after all, we're only ordinary men who are about to take on Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon.
Are we insane?
It's always been crazy. You guys.
I don't know, I was really drunk at the time.
You were. Yeah.
Oh, what? All right, we're not going to play the whole song here, but you get the gist of it.
Yes.
With money. Where to start?
Oh, no, Dave, speak to me.
Yes. Let me breathe in the air.
Okay, I'm
here.
going to start with a question. We all own the album.
Yes.
Yes.
Or several.
Several.
Yes.
When did we get the albums?
Oh, that's a good place to start, Brian.
Because
I agree.
This was my first Pink Floyd album. I was probably 13 or 14 years old. I knew of, Us and Them, Money. But then I had a friend of mine, Carl, who had a car. He's a couple years older. He saw me walking home from school one day and he picked me up and he's like, "You got to hear this." Throws in his tape deck and he's playing On the Run, just cranked. And then it gets to time and all the clocks going off. And I was just like, wow, this is the most awesome thing ever. So I bought the album shortly after that.
One
Used
of your
record.
first. Was
Used
it
record.
One of the first. No, you were 13. So
I was
probably
13.
Not one of the first albums you bought. But
No, not the first album, but my first Pink Floyd.
yeah.
Yeah.
Jay
So I was
Giles
about
Band was
10
the
years
first
old.
album you ever bought.
Yeah,
Don't you remember that?
I remember that. I said
Yeah.
one of the first.
One of the first. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I had a small collection of albums at that time. So yeah, but that was definitely one of them and absolutely loved it. Just fell in love with this album.
Okay, I will say my first Pink Floyd album was The Wall. And I knew this music, but I was not into Pink Floyd. When it came out, I was 9 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just a little too early to be getting into Pink Floyd, I think.
Right.
So I didn't really honestly get into Floyd. This sounds really strange, but it was sometime in my college years.
Okay.
I liked The Wall, but to me it wasn't. I don't know. Maybe I was just too into heavy guitars and heavy metal and that sort of thing because Pink Floyd is just a different kind of band, obviously.
Right.
So yeah, it wasn't until later, and the first time I purchased this album, honestly, you guys are going to be blown away by this, but probably sometime in the last 15 years.
Wow.
Oh,
I am
Yeah.
blown away.
yeah.
I've always
That
liked it.
surprises me. Yeah.
But it just wasn't in my collection. The Wall was.
Mm-hmm.
But The Wall is, every Pink Floyd album is a little different.
Mm-hmm.
and the Wall was, heavier in spots and more guitar based, I think. No, I shouldn't say that. David Gilmour would kill me for saying that.
Yeah.
So
he is a listener. I know that.
Maybe he'll sponsor the show.
Yeah. Right.
Pluto TV and David Gilmour.
Yeah. So now I have pretty much every album in the Pink Floyd discography and some greatest hits, and I spend a lot of hours listening to Pink Floyd, but
It's easy to do.
With your lava lamps.
I do.
And burning incense downstairs.
I don't have any incense yet, but I probably should get some.
Ooh, yet. I caught that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your wife doesn't listen to this anyway, so.
She does not appreciate much of what I listen to be honest. And that's fine.
Yep.
I don't appreciate much of the TV shows she likes either.
There you go.
Good thing she doesn't listen, Lance.
We have, we have.
Yeah, you're just digging a deeper hole.
We're safe ripping on our wives on this show.
Hey, my wife listens to this show.
Okay, never mind.
She's the best. I love her so much.
So yeah, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But yeah, I nowadays could just probably spend a whole day putting Pink Floyd albums on. It's a mood.
It is. They're long enough. I mean, you have enough material there.
Yeah.
I like Lance. I think my first album was The Wall, and I think it was kind of around high school, maybe 10th or 11th grade. I can't really remember, and I don't remember buying Dark Side of the Moon specifically either. But I started getting into that through kind of a mutual friend who introduced me to them. And I remember actually, the first recollection I have of listening to The Wall was over at one of my cousin's houses, and she had the double album, and just looking at the artwork, and then she was like, "Oh, you got to hear this," and playing some of the songs. It was so different from anything I'd ever heard. And it really made an impact, especially with the artwork, because it was so cool. The illustrations, like the weird characters they have, like they're portrayed in the actual movie. But I kind of got on a kick for a while of trying to collect a lot of the Pink Floyd albums. So I own quite a few of them. So I was really into like Piper at the Gates of Dawn and Metal, and
that's much different than
it is.
Yeah.
Yes. Obscured by Clouds. I really like that one too. So, they're all, like you said, they're all very different. And the early stuff, with Syd Barrett was so different than this too.
Yep.
But anyway, that's
kind of happy poppy stuff, a lot of it.
Yeah. And, David, Roger Waters was talking about that in an interview. I saw him too. And he just really, like, he was quoting from the song The Bike, and how Sid would kind of form his phrasing, and how it, with the meter that went on with that is so different than anything that they wrote, And so at some point we'll talk about that when he kind of took over songwriting. But anyway, yeah, that's the first recollection I have.
You mentioned the artwork, and I was reading, I think it was Gilmour who attributed part of the album's success to obviously the combination of music, lyrics, but also the cover art.
Yeah.
I have a whole thing on that.
Okay,
you ready?
Good. Yeah, let's
bring it on.
So if you haven't seen Squaring the Circle, the story of hypnosis, this is a documentary on the ad agency, basically the design firm that designed this album. It's on Netflix right now at the time of recording anyway. So this English art design group based in London were responsible for creating iconic cover art for bands like, get this, Led Zeppelin, Wings, Peter Gabriel, ELO, Bad Company, Yes, Styx, Alan Parsons Project, Genesis, Scorpions, The Police, and Pink Floyd.
Wow.
And they did a lot of Pink Floyd albums. They did most of their early stuff.
Yeah.
So you picture Pink Floyd, they kind of have a look to their album covers, right?
Yep.
So this one was created by English graphic designer George Hardy with input from Storm Thorgerson and Aubrey Powell of Hypnosis. The Dark Side of the Moon's album cover, evocative, eye-catching graphic of a prism turning light into color, is one of the most iconic designs to ever grace an LP. And I think most people would say that. So here's what David Gilmour recalled in 2003 from an interview with Rolling Stone. When Storm showed us all the ideas with that one, there was no doubt. And I remember in this interview, they talked about when he said they started going through ideas and they said, stop, that's it. And you're like, no, we have more ideas. No, you don't need to show us anymore. That's the one. It's a brilliant cover. So he said one can look at it after that first moment of brilliance and think, well, it's a very commercial idea. It's a very stark and simple idea. It'll look great in shop windows. It wasn't a vague picture of four lads bouncing in the countryside. He said that fact wasn't lost on us. So, like some of their other stuff.
You know, and considering the music on this album, it needs something like that. It wasn't, and all Pink Floyd music isn't, even though they're great musicians, it wasn't about the personalities in the band. It got to be later.
Yeah.
But that's their own fault. Victims of their own success or something like that. So, you know, considering that it's kind of a concept album and all of their albums are concept albums, it makes sense to have this iconic image. And obviously, you know, think of their other albums, The Wall, Animals.
I wouldn't say all of their albums are concept albums that flowed together anywhere close like this, before this.
Not before this, but
right,
definitely after.
Yeah, after,
Yeah.
Yep.
They found the formula.
But yeah, very simple cover, but so recognizable.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that.
I want to say it was Dave Gilmour or Roger Waters who were talking about it too, and he said it's kind of strange to walk down the street and still see, like, in London area or somewhere around there, that they'll see like 10 shirts with the Pink Floyd logo on them, or, you know, just people are still wearing that stuff,
right? And
how iconic that has become.
I wonder if that contributed to the ongoing success.
It could be.
I mean, just seeing the imagery, people, like you say, wearing the shirts, and like, oh, well, maybe I should buy a third copy of that this week.
It's working.
All right, so as we get into talking about this, just to kind of summarize what the album is about here. So it was originally conceived by the band as a cohesive collection of songs about the pressures of life as a musician. So Dark Side of the Moon eventually expanded to include songs about broader topics such as wealth, the song Money, armed conflict, song Us and Them, madness, the song Brain Damage, squandered existences, song Time, and then death, The Great Gig in the Sky. As Waters told Rolling Stone in 2011, Dark Side was the first Pink Floyd album that was genuinely thematic and genuinely about something. So what do you think about that? Accurate?
I think he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
You think so?
I agree 100%. Although the first, I don't know, several times I listened to it, I didn't think of it in that way.
No.
Neither did I.
You just knew that the whole thing flowed together.
Exactly.
But you weren't necessarily going like, oh, this means this. This means this.
Yeah.
Oh, this probably is representing this.
Yeah. Do you think that's a deliberate move by a band to have tracks flow together to make you listen to the whole thing? Or is it just because that's the type of music it is?
Well, I mean, the type of music that they play, it just goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
So it's easy to do that.
Yeah.
You know, whether they set out to do that, I don't know.
I think they did on this purposely.
So, yeah.
Is it a marketing
so it wasn't
move?
like they started writing.
No, I don't think it's a marketing move.
It's artistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. That they wanted it to flow.
Yeah.
The way it did.
Yep. I would agree. And, you know, objective achieved.
And the flow also made it interesting listening on the radio.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, you know, they play a song and you hear just that little snippet of the song it's coming out of going into the new song.
Yeah.
But you're not hearing the previous song, but you hear that little bit of it.
Yeah.
And then too, as a fade out, you know, they got to quick fade it out, or they got to quick go into another song by another band or something, because that's just going to go into another Pink Floyd song.
Yeah. Just keep going on and on.
What other albums besides, I mean, obviously Pink Floyd did that with albums after this. Are there any other artists that you can think of that have done something like that?
Usually with a song or two, but not the entire album like this.
No.
I can't.
Yeah. I can't think of any either. And again, maybe that's what contributes to the listening experience of a Pink Floyd album.
Definitely.
It doesn't give you a cutoff point. So yeah, you do just keep, you just keep going with it.
Yeah.
Except when you had to flip the record over.
Yeah.
So, you know, Money, you know, into Us and Them doesn't go together, but the rest of it does.
Yeah.
How about on the CD? I guess I
They
can't remember.
still have a little break in
Have a
there.
gap.
Yeah.
Yep. The only gap on the album.
Yep.
Yeah. I sometimes will listen on a streaming device, and because it sounds really good, but the device doesn't support gapless playback, and it sucks.
Yeah.
It's really not very fun to listen
Stop.
to.
Go.
Yeah. So on my Christmas wish list, although we'll see if it comes to fruition, I would like to get a gapless playback. I'd like to get a gapless playback. I would like to get a gapless playback player.
Oh,
You know what I would
there
like?
you go.
I would like a Lance interpreter hook up to our soundboard.
Those cost too much.
Ask my wife.
Jen, can you come in during a recording sometime? We need an interpreter.
Jen, are you there? Are you listening?
Is there anybody in there?
Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Oh gosh.
All right, a couple more facts before we get into talking some tracks here. Dark Side of the Moon was the first Pink Floyd album to feature Roger Waters as the sole lyricist. Sole lyricist.
Yeah, and I was reading a little bit about his lyrics, and I can't remember exactly the context of this, but they were ready to print the album and the jacket, and they were kind of similar to looking at the cover. Is this it? Oh, that's it. They were so confident in the lyrics. They said, "Yeah, just go ahead. We know we're not changing anything," and it was, and not at the normal stage of production. Where this would happen, but they said no, he's nailed them. So that was a point, I suppose, where the band was all kind of getting along, and they were in sync. Oh no, they were not in sync. The band members were very locked into what they were doing, and
Locked in, that's better.
Confident in each other. So they were confident in Roger Waters' ability to create these terrific lyrics.
I have an end quote from Roger Waters that talks about that confidence.
I was going to say, too,
He still is confident. Sorry.
this just made me think how Pink Floyd is kind of a faceless group. I mean, I think now, because with the internet and everything, you can see them. But up until this point, you didn't really see them. I mean, you weren't seeing them in magazines. You weren't,
100% agree.
videos.
Yep.
So, yeah, it was kind of interesting.
Yep. And, not putting themselves on the covers.
Right.
Did they on the early albums?
Ummagumma has them probably featured the most prominently, but
Yeah.
they were like little smaller band shots in other ones. But it wasn't like they were front, the cover. Like a band
I know in
photo
the
wasn't
liner
big.
notes on this album, I mean, they do have their pictures in there, but
Yeah.
some of them are kind of dark, and they don't even name who the people are. It's just, this is Pink Floyd.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, it's all about the music, and I appreciate that.
One more snippet here of info. The album was very nearly called Eclipse.
Mm-hmm.
You read that too?
Yeah.
There was a band called Medicine Head who released an album with the same name, Dark Side of the Moon, but it quickly sunk into obscurity
Wow.
right after they released it. So they were like, we can keep the name.
We're safe.
Yeah, we're safe. Yeah.
What was the name of the band again?
Medicine Head.
And Medicine Head did not come at them with
No.
Boy, that sounds like the name of a band that would have been more 80s or 90s
Yeah, right?
than 70s.
wow.
Early 70s.
Medicine, it sounds very like Devo-esque.
Yeah.
Well, okay, think about that. Eclipse. Not a bad album title either.
No.
But Dark Side of the Moon takes you to a completely different place that you've never been.
Yep.
Yeah. And never will be.
Right.
Unless you're Neil Armstrong or Buzz Aldrin.
Really, all sides of the moon are dark.
I know. That's the...
Yeah.
Let's really think about this, guys.
Let's talk some tracks now. Then, All right, here we go. As per usual, I'm going to run down the list of tracks, side one, side two, then we'll circle back and start talking about them. And I'm sure it'll just morph into other conversations because, we were talking about earlier, all these songs kind of bleed into each other.
Mm-hmm.
Side one, we begin with Speak to Me, then Breathe, On the Run, Time, The Great Gig in the Sky, and then we flip over to side two for Money, Us and Them, Any Color You Like, Brain Damage, and Eclipse. We start off the album with Speak to Me. Short intro. I think this is kind of a short intro, including like bits of the interviews and the sound effects that are in other songs.
Yeah, it's little snippets of what's about to come.
Yeah. And even the vocalist on Great Gig in the Sky, who we'll get to too.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of like your big intro, and then boom, we bust into Breathe.
It's the index.
Yeah.
They really are speaking to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's appropriately titled.
Yeah. And remind me, after we get done with this, I have kind of an overarching, I talked to Brian about this earlier, even today, overarching view of the entire album here and what it could be about.
Deep Thoughts
it's deep.
by Dave Norris.
We got so deep into this, reviewing it and analyzing it. It was a thought I had that I got confirmed, I think, through a number of sources.
Yeah.
You know, kind of what it's about.
Expert opinions.
Sure. We'll call it expert opinions on Reddit for one of them.
I like Reddit, but that's a whole other.
Yeah, we're not talking about Reddit. We're talking about Breathe in the Air now Speak to Me. It's a really short intro basically that just kind of bleeds right into Breathe in the Air.
Correct.
Yeah.
There's not much to say about Speak to Me.
No.
Because it says it all.
That's right.
And we get into some harmonies and guitar and just a really light song before we get into heavier stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about this?
Breathe in the Air.
Yeah.
Slide guitar. A lot of that in here.
There's a few songs maybe with slide, but this is,
Yeah.
It's a very, did you say it kind of eases you into the album?
Yep. It does.
Yeah. And
Soothing voice. I mean, it's just very calm. And
Yep. I never feel tense listening to Pink Floyd.
Ooh,
although maybe on the wall.
Wow, you're weird.
Oh.
But on this album, I don't. It's, of course, depends on how loud I have it cranked up. You know, there's a few on here that will wake you up in the morning.
On the Run could be a little uneasy. Come on.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's that good bourbon I bought.
Kind of knocks the edge off of all the songs.
Thanks to our sponsor.
Oh, we got to pick a good one. If you're going to name names, man, pick a good one.
Okay, you say, and we all agree, it's a good ease in, but, just even the words, breathe in the air.
Yeah.
I just feel like
Yeah.
the weight is lifted off. It's a great way to, as we said, slide into the album.
Yep.
Yeah. Some great lyrics and harmonies. I mean, lyrically, this is very thematic, obviously, but they're pretty deep lyrics too.
Like the last 3 albums we've done.
Yeah. What's up with that?
We're all of a sudden like intellectuals or something.
We are, aren't we?
Let's not push it there, Brian. Yeah, but I mean, really interesting to really read the lyrics too. And most of them you can understand. I think, you mentioned this before. When you can understand what they're saying,
Right.
it's so much more impactful.
Yep.
And most of these you can get from what they're saying.
Yep.
There's a lot of kind of buried stuff in there too, but they intentionally bury stuff.
Right.
Well, as I said when I first listened to this, I didn't pay much attention to the lyrics. Was there a point where you guys started contemplating the lyrics of this album or other albums, or is it just kind of like listening to a Rush album? Well, these are good lyrics. They're heady. They're not trite. They're not, I think I love you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, these last, 2 or 3 albums we've talked about, I'm kind of reminded how polar opposite it is from some of like the 80s bands I used to listen to with really shallow lyrics.
Yep.
And, pop stuff. So
Yep.
I've never been a huge lyric guy or like, I should really study what this is about. Very rarely had I been doing that, but I knew these were serious and I knew I could sing along to them. I never really contemplated too much until, for this album, really getting into it recently and diving into that and what my interpretation or others' interpretation could mean.
Yeah, you knew it was a concept album, but what was the concept?
Yeah.
I never dug that far into it.
Yeah, me neither. I just liked how it sounded.
Yeah.
I have a theory at the end.
All right.
Stay tuned.
Dave's got a lot of. I'm looking forward to this.
I did.
This could be a long ending.
I had a little. Yeah, it might be. I had a little bit of an epiphany that I got confirmed.
Well, that's good because, like we were saying before, this is a concept album that flows all together. It's really hard to pick apart and say, well, this track is I like this one better, or it's not that kind of album where we can.
Oh, I bet it kind of is.
Well, for you, okay, good. Go for it.
I do have some favorites on here.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to from this. We get a little more tense with "On the Run." Then this originally was named the travel sequence. By the way, you can kind of get
that. Yeah.
Because there's some like footsteps, and you can just hear this wash of sound kind of moving you around. Right?
Yep.
With all their synth stuff moving from one speaker to the other, one side, left to right.
This album, more than any other, because of songs like this, makes my music room, and I'm sure hundreds of others or thousands of others, or no matter where you listen to it on headphones, really an experience to listen to.
Yeah,
totally.
It's
the pacing, that running back and forth in your head while you're listening to this, and and then you got that background airport chatter going on, and that's even the little effect they have in that voice is kind of creepy a little bit. It sounds a little. I don't know. It's just... It
starts getting a little disturbing.
Yeah,
right?
It does.
It's more tense. I don't know how Lance is relaxing in this song.
I know, that's what I was saying.
I don't know, but I honestly, it's just... Maybe it's because you just melt into the chair and you almost melt right into the music listening. I do anyway.
When I was in high school, this is the song we'd listen to at night. It's dark out. We would go out on Redwood Road, windy, curvy road, out in the woods, and it's pitch black, and we would just crank this while we're driving through there.
Really?
And it was just, it was kind of freaky listening to that when it's dark, and then you get in those stretches and you turn the headlights off for a little while. And,
man.
And then those...
Glad you're still here today.
Yeah,
Brian.
I know. Those clocks kick in, and it's just, whoa.
I can see that being kind of intense.
Yeah. And I mean, we do that all the time. I mean, it was just kind of a thing.
That was the thing.
Yeah.
I like how this album is more about experience than we're really just talking about how do you feel listening.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this one starts making me feel a little tense.
It does. Yeah.
There's just
I'm still mellow.
Because there's such a wash of different things going on.
Yep.
And bleeding in from one side to the other. And then it's like a low note.
In and out. And
but it's cool.
And then it slows down and it gets really quiet.
And
it does, yeah.
And then you kick into Time.
Yes.
Which is just iconic. And I was thinking today, all those clocks and stuff, those aren't sounds you hear today anymore.
No.
It's pretty dated.
Yeah, it is.
Who has a grandfather clock?
My grandparents had a cuckoo clock.
Yeah. That
was about the closest.
Who has ticking clocks going off?
I have a ticking clock in my office, actually.
Okay.
We have a ticking clock at home, but it's not like this. Not like you say, a grandfather clock. That's why, totally non-related, but that's why I appreciate going outside at noon every day, because there's a church in town that plays their bells.
And you hear the bells, yeah.
So it's a bit of the past.
Yeah.
Analog. Hey. You know, when records ruled.
That's right.
Yes.
But yeah, On the Run into Time. That's my favorite.
Yeah,
that is my favorite.
It's quiet.
There's so many good songs on here, but that was the one that was always like,
it's so
like
abrupt.
If I'm going to say, oh, you got to hear this, that's when I'm going to play somebody.
And it's kind of like, this tense, all these tense sounds going on, and it finally calms down, and you're like, okay, I can breathe, and then just wham!
Yeah,
all the clocks going off. You're like, no, wake up!
Whoa!
Oh, you thought you could relax? Here we go.
That's right.
I noted some great lyrics on here too, because there's great lyrics throughout here. But I'll just kind of recite a little bit because I think you guys could relate to this too. And this, I think, talks about this song in particular talks about how the realization of we only have a limited amount of time here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm way more into that than you guys because I'm a little older.
Yeah,
you're
we can tell.
Thanks.
So
How come you took your glasses off?
So I can read because I'm freaking old. Yep.
It's demonstration in studio for us.
I'm looking at the lyrics too because I want to follow along with Dave.
All right.
So I pulled up the lyrics.
Tired of lying in the sunshine, staying home to watch the rain. And you are young and life is long, and there is time to kill today. And then one day you find 10 years have got behind you. No one told you when to run. You miss the starting gun.
How depressing.
You feel that, right?
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
what? It's gone. Life is. I remember Roger Waters talking about, I think it was this song in particular, when he was about 30 or so, and he finally realized, he had been under the assumption he was preparing for life and doing something, and all of a sudden he realized, I'm doing it. I'm already here. Mm-hmm. And 30 years have already got behind him, and is like, okay.
Yep.
Well, I got a late start or something,
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting.
Every year it's getting shorter. Never seem to find the time. Oh my gosh, that is very relatable too.
But aren't they too young to have lyrics like this?
Yeah, really. But you know what? They might be a little ahead of their time too.
Ooh. It's kind of like Steven Tyler and Dream On. I mean, he was like 22 or 23 when he wrote that song.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is something you write when you're in your 40s.
Yeah. Well, that's why this stuff is enduring too.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, most people can't come up with good stuff like this.
Somewhat related, but I remember in U2's Rattle and Hum when Bono's reading some lyrics for a B.B. King song.
Yeah.
He's like, you might be young to be writing such heavy lyrics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to The Great Gig in the Sky.
Oh, I had one more thing on time.
Oh, sorry.
And this is misheard lyrics.
Oh, of course.
When we were younger in high school, and a lot of my friends thought the same thing. We thought he said, it's good to warm your balls beside the fire. And we just thought that is the greatest lyric. And they're playing it on the radio and they're getting away with it.
That's awesome.
Bleep. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it kind of made sense.
Yeah, kind of did. I mean, it kind of sounded with the English accent.
Yeah,
I can hear that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The Great Gig in the Sky. By the way, the Brit Floyd show. There was one of the backup singers who came out and did this phenomenal job.
Showstopper.
Holy cow! Yeah.
Up into this point, I don't know if this was kind of midway through or getting close to midway through the concert.
Close.
It was right when I walked in.
Okay,
Oh, so right before, yeah,
about
right before.
45 minutes into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was the first big crowd response.
Mm-hmm.
Everything before that was pretty mellow. When she finished, man, people
Yeah.
were standing up and clapping and cheering. Biggest, probably of the night, the biggest applause.
Yeah, maybe I missed. Missed part of the show.
Trust us.
Yep.
Yeah, it's an interesting song though, because what's the motivation to have just kind of a non-lyrical female? Where did they come up with this idea?
So Clara Torrey is her name, and she was like a session singer that Alan Parsons knew of, I believe, and thought of her for this. And so Gilmore, who was in charge of this session, they basically had a chord progression, and then he asked her to try and express emotions rather than singing words, since all they had were these chord progressions.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they kind of led into with.
Do you know that Richard Wright actually penned this song? I'm looking here.
Yeah. Between him and Claire basically get the writing credits, because she sued years later because she got paid a flat fee. You want to guess how much?
$2,000.
No, $22. She got paid $500.
Yeah. Wow.
Not much, right?
Wow.
For basically writing this. So she sued them back in 2004 for some songwriting royalties, and they settled for an undisclosed amount. So I'm sure she got something, and she gets credit now too since then. I think in 2004 or 5.
I saw that the working title of this was Mortality Sequence. And kind of the definition was it's about life gradually descending into death. First part, refusing to die, which is pretty the intense part of her doing that. And then the second half is giving in to death.
Interesting. I did not read that. That's kind of answering Lance's question too, of just
Now-
singing
Yeah.
emotions rather than
Now, is that,
words.
was that description after listening to it? Because if she was just kind of told to, I don't know, when he said, just do this, did she just
Sing
go
emotions.
do it?
Yeah.
Or, did she have time to think about what she wanted to do? And this is my motivation. This is how I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know how that
Well,
panned out.
I'm wondering if they did the chord progressions to kind of build up and then, go down and
Yeah.
build up, So there was a little bit of movement in there already, and she's kind of helping accentuate that. I mean, it's a phenomenal song. I love this.
yeah. Yeah.
And it's really just riffing,
yeah,
her just
exactly.
singing without words.
Yeah.
It's just so cool. It's beautiful.
Beautiful. Wow.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's moving too. I mean, kind of
Moving
like the
was
other
what
ones.
I was thinking of. Yeah.
It's moving. It's moving.
Through life.
That's right. We're ready to flip it over.
Flipper over.
Gets a different sound to this. Yep. Here we go.
Let's go to the money side of the album.
Flip sound. We start with money on this side.
Boom, boom, boom. You guys should just go ahead and talk. Boom, 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 boom.
Are you doing a Booker T and the MGs song?
Boom, boom, boom.
Because that's what this song was influenced by.
Boom, 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 boom.
Green.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know
Oh,
that.
really?
Yeah. Gilmore.
Okay.
He used to listen to them and even do some songs in cover bands when he was growing up. And he said, I thought I could kind of sneak this in there. But if you listen to it, you're like, oh, yeah.
I can totally hear it. You know what
Yeah.
I like about this?
What do you
So
like?
the first verse, there's a really dated word. Money, it's a gas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's true.
Actually, yes.
It's a very 70s term,
Yeah. It's gas. Yes.
which, is good to have a little bit of that because you can kind of relate to when the album was recorded and put down and not put down, but you know what I mean?
Yeah,
When the tracks were put down.
that's right.
I don't have a note on this, but I remember hearing or reading something about the loop of all the money sounds, and that was Roger Waters putting together some sounds and creating literally a loop
Yep.
for this.
Yeah.
Like him throwing change into his girlfriend's ceramic bowl or something. She had like a ceramic shop or something in the back.
Ceramic bowl.
Ceramic. I
Sounds
don't know.
like,
dish.
what do you do with a ceramic bowl?
Well, they were probably
Well,
doing some of that too.
Yeah.
You burn incense, right, Lance?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. We get you a ceramic bowl for Christmas so you can burn incense in your basement.
And then actually, I mean, we are
Don't tell
all
my wife.
we are all old enough to remember those cash registers, though.
Oh, totally.
The
Yes.
ching, ching, ching.
Yeah.
Pulling that down. I remember all that.
Running, you can hear them pushing it in. Right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
We are old enough. I think this is probably one of the first songs I remember hearing consistently on the radio too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
I agree.
Yeah, it's was and still is.
Yeah.
Big time radio staple.
Yes. Anything more on money? We're going to move on.
I have they put out a greatest hits in '81, and they re-recorded this song because there was conflict with the record company. They didn't want them using it.
Oh.
So David Gilmour re-recorded the song. He did all the instruments except the saxophone on it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's impressive.
It's very similar. I mean, it sounds pretty close. I mean, this is,
I kinda wanna hear that.
8 years later.
yeah.
But yeah, so it has a different version. I don't know why they were able to get all the other songs on there, but this one, for whatever reason,
That is
they
weird.
wouldn't do it. And
Probably had
Because this was their moneymaker.
I guess.
I'm here all
And
night,
there's
guys.
also funny the name of the album was A Collection of Great Dance Songs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, I remember that album.
I
Yeah.
do too. Yeah.
Which is funny because who dances to Pink Floyd?
That's exactly the point.
Exactly it.
the
Yeah.
irony, right?
So
And it has a picture of some dancing couple in a field on the album cover. I remember that one too.
great. Yep.
Are we sure that it had nothing to do with Waters and conflict? And
It was the record company.
Huh.
And then I was always bothered by the one line in there, though, that the love of money is the root of all evil.
Yep.
No, I'm sorry.
No. Wait, you actually got it right though.
I got it right.
Yes.
They got it wrong.
Money is
They
the root
say
of-
money is the root of all evil.
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
the love of money is the root of all evil.
You are correct, sir. Yes.
yeah,
Found in
I'm looking at the lyrics.
First
So
Timothy.
you're absolutely correct.
So many people misquote that and
Yeah,
misunderstand
I know.
that.
It's like, no.
It's a very important difference.
Yeah, it's very extreme different.
Yes.
It kind of rocks, actually, now that you think about it. I mean, I say this is kind of a mellow album, but no, this song,
It's got enough
you could
beats.
almost
Yeah.
dance to it.
Well, it's 7/4 timing until they get to the solo, then it's a 4/4.
Right,
That's what I've read. So it's a kind of weird timing, and then they get to the solo, and it's like a normal song. But yeah, it does rock.
I think when you get to the middle, that's when you start breakdancing.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Us and Them.
I
We're going to mellow out again.
dig this song
Very
a lot.
moody song, yeah.
This is probably my favorite song on the album.
Yeah.
Thinking back to the Brit Floyd,
Yep.
I thought this was probably, well, you guys were talking about Great Gig in the Sky, but I didn't hear most of that. So for me, this was the highlight song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were very tight. And as in the original, great harmony vocals and a really epic chorus. It's just, man, it's a moving song.
I just thought of this. That was a great song to watch, but then Comfortably Numb was
At the Brit
also,
Floyd? Yeah.
Brit Floyd
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
was really good too.
Yeah.
Are those songs kind of similar?
Kind of, a big,
The
big
tone
chorus,
of them.
the guitar solo in both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sax. You got sax and
Yeah.
I don't know. I
mean,
just thought of that.
structurally, they're kind of similar.
Maybe structurally, yeah. I mean, obviously different songs, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like the lengths of the songs, but anyway.
Yeah.
They build.
So it happens when you think on the spot.
No, but they both build, and they're big and they're epic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always love the saxophone in the beginning of it too, because it sounds like a restrained saxophone.
Yeah.
Like it's just
very airy.
Yeah, it's
Light
airy.
and
Yeah.
airy. Yeah.
Always
And actually,
loved that.
at the Brit Floyd show, he did a really good job
Oh,
of that
man.
too. Because I'm like,
He
I
sure
can
did.
barely hear him.
Yeah.
Can't turn it up a little while. It's just playing so
Yeah.
soft.
Yeah.
So soft. Again, this was the second single released right after Money. So that was the
How
first.
long is this song?
I have that.
7 minutes. and 40
7:48.
minutes.
I wonder
Yeah.
if they had an edited version that they gave to radio, because that's pretty long.
That is long.
And I know I heard it on the radio a lot, but I don't think it was edited. I'm
Kind
sure
of like
that was
Bohemian Rhapsody. You cannot
can't.
do the
Yeah, what are you
song
gonna do?
without- Yeah.
No. But I think this is probably the biggest sounding song on the album. Is that fair?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
The chorus is just monster.
It is.
With like 3 or 4 different voices or,
Yep.
or more going on there, and just everything just kind of crescendoing into those choruses.
Agree. Totally.
And then you break that down to like a little sax solo. It's just so
Yeah.
light and airy again. Yeah.
Mhm.
There was a time, and it's probably like, I don't know, I was 13 or 14, probably about the time I bought this album. And for the summer, we had my sister had a playhouse that my dad built for her, small 4x8 house in the backyard. I moved into that for the summer.
The summer?
The
Wow.
summer, I slept out there.
California.
And
Obviously, your sister was done.
she
with
was done with the playhouse. My
Yeah.
brother and I had converted into a fort. Now
No
my
girls
brother,
allowed.
My brother is now gone.
Yeah.
And so I moved in there for the summer. I ran an extension cord out there. I had my stereo in this room
wow.
and my record player. And I remember listening to this a lot
Really?
out there. Yeah.
What an epic place.
That would be
That's
cool.
so cool.
It was fun. I felt so cool. I felt like I was on my own,
Yeah.
you know, but it's just in the backyard.
It's like a boy's man cave.
It was. And I had a paper out, so I still had my
I
clock
mean-
out there. I had to get up early in the morning and go. But listening to this album, I remember a lot out there.
I remember having some forts growing up too, and just hanging out in them and just feeling that sense of freedom. Though.
Yeah.
You're right. There was just a cool sense of, this is mine.
Yeah.
This is
Yep.
my space.
Yep.
Not what this song's about though.
No.
All right, let's move on again to Any Color You Like, which is another instrumental.
Mm-hmm.
There was an interesting story I read too about Roger Waters, and listening to him talk about this title. Yeah, see if I can get to a little note on that, because
I think I did see a little bit on that.
yeah, it was kind of based loosely on some, like people would come in and sell some wares and stuff out of the back of the trucks, and he had this way of like this. He noted their kind of way of talking about things. And, when they'd be selling it, and he always relates it to, it's any color you like, it's all blue.
Mm-hmm.
And just any color you like you've made a decision, but the decision's not yours to make.
Yeah.
So it's kind of been made for you.
It's kind of the Henry Ford thing.
You guys are blowing my mind here.
You could have, you can have this car in any color you like as long as it's black.
Yes.
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned that too, kind of the same thing. So I thought that was kind of an interesting take.
So it's like you have the choice, but there's really no choice.
Yes.
But they make you feel like, yeah.
And we're supposed to get that kind of out of this.
You're getting that out of an
too.
Instrumental.
Yeah, exactly.
You didn't get that, Lance?
And that's where you get so much more by, diving a little bit in these. And
it's
you're
just
like,
a title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's none of
how are you supposed to get that out of a title?
Yeah, I don't know how you get that out of a title either, but
no.
We just told you how you get that out of a title.
Right. You're still blowing my mind. It's just
as long as it's blue. All right, then let's move on to Brain Damage. This was actually the first song that Rogers wrote for the album. And it contains the title at the end of the song too. Written about anybody?
Lunatics?
Well,
I don't know.
Who was somebody?
Sid Barrett?
Sid Barrett.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. It's interesting hearing these guys talk about Sid too. And they touch on this a little bit in that that documentary about hypnosis too. And how Sid, all of them kind of started getting into LSD to a certain extent, but he said that Sid was doing that pretty regularly, and it started to really take on a different form for him and really kind of started to drive him. Roger talked about, he thinks Sid might have been already schizophrenic a little bit before that, but he just kind of went into some really madness. I think there's a famous, they were trying to shoot some video early on in their career, and Sid is doing nothing but has a guitar, I think, strung around him, and he's looking at the camera like the entire time. And Roger Waters is lip syncing the lyrics. And so he was just not always there. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of one of those things that led to his demise. And I guess he lived till like he was 60, but he wanted nothing to do with Pink Floyd.
Huh.
Roger said he tried to reach out to him through his sister and stuff before, and no, that's better if you don't come. So kind of sad. But obviously there's a number of songs that are written about him. So they loved the guy to death.
Right.
They hoped he'd get better, but did not.
And I understand all of that, but Pink Floyd is a different band without Sid Barrett.
Right.
Oh, totally
And
different.
Took him in a different direction.
I'm not totally sure we'd be sitting here talking about Dark Side of the Moon in the way that it's presented here had Sid Barrett or, any of. So it's sad, but it's like, well,
yeah,
on to the
what they had to
maybe
do.
Bigger, well, definitely bigger and better things for the band. But it's really, what's the right word? Admirable of them to honor this guy that, and clearly had mental illness that is still so prevalent in the world that it brings maybe a little light to the problem.
Yeah.
So.
And I remember listening to this, before really thinking about what any of these songs were meant, and the little cackling and stuff going on, and like, oh, this is a weird song. Yeah. It's kind of fun, and well, if you take it seriously, it takes on a whole different meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And didn't he write this like sitting in his garden or in his backyard? And because it has,
I didn't read that,
kind of like, these grass references and paths through the garden.
Yeah, he talked about that. Now that you're saying that, there's a specific, he even mentions exactly where this piece of grass is.
Oh.
Like it's a...
This is funny, guys.
Yeah.
I just assumed that grass was, the 70s term for pot, and the lunatic is on the grass.
No.
Yeah.
No.
That's what I've always thought it was. Yeah.
Yeah. Very
got
specific.
To keep the loonies on the path.
On the path.
Yeah.
Keep them off my grass. Don't walk in my yard.
He was writing like an old man already.
Yeah. That's right. Well, they matured early.
That's right.
Exactly.
Or aged early.
Yeah.
Whatever you call it.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the last song here, Eclipse. We get to the finale, which feels like a finale when we start popping into this, right?
Absolutely. It's the epic,
Bookend.
There's the
beginning and the end.
Yeah,
You're looking for another word.
I'm looking for another word, and I need my thesaurus in front of me.
It kind
You have
of
a phone.
it closes the album the way it kind of started. You know, when you get that heartbeat in the beginning, you get that heartbeat in the end as it fades out.
It's very big, though. I mean,
Right? Yeah, you're saying it is.
Yeah, it just builds and builds and builds and
until
builds.
it just fades off.
Flat lines.
Yeah,
I just got goosebumps thinking about that. The ending, how it just, and then little tidbit about this one. Maybe you guys knew this already or not, but Beatles music made an appearance at the end of the song.
really.
I heard that. I did not research it and try to listen to it.
I tried to listen to it. I couldn't hear it. But if you listen, supposedly if you listen really close to the end, there's a passage from an orchestral version of the Beatles' Ticket to Ride that can be heard. The song was apparently playing in the background of the studio while Abbey Road drummer or doorman Jerry O'Driscoll, who delivers the immortal lines, "There is no dark side of the moon, really. Matter of fact, it's all dark."
Yep.
Because Roger Waters, we didn't talk about this, but Roger Waters, as part of this album, interviewed a bunch of staff members and roadies and people who worked at the Abbey Road studios and asked them a bunch of questions that he had on cards and was looking for some kind of serious answers. Like, have you ever gotten in a fight? You know, were you in the right? The side type of stuff to get these answers. And that's where a lot of these answers, like there is no dark side of the moon, really, came from. But I tried to listen for this and I could not hear it.
Couldn't find it.
No.
Yeah.
No. I didn't have a pair of headphones on either.
You'd probably have to do that.
Maybe
and pull one side off and
maybe it's in there.
loosen it.
But I thought that was kind of interesting.
Well, with Alan Parsons, and his
I mean,
Beatles and this, and
dude did okay, right?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Any final thoughts? I can get into the arc if you want me to, of what I think this whole album kind of encapsulates.
There's only one problem.
Speak to me.
Yeah.
One problem with the album.
What?
It ends at some point,
Yeah.
Good point.
It's so good.
Which is perfect.
Yeah.
They leave you wanting more.
Yeah.
So this epiphany I had was kind of after listening to a few of the songs and looking at the titles, that it's kind of the arc of a life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And maybe you got this already, Brian, or heard about this. So Speak to Me, the album opens up with a heartbeat. You can imagine that this is a child maybe inside the womb hearing, his own heartbeat, starts hearing outside sounds like the clock and the rhythm of cash registers and all those things. And the final screaming, could be like either the mother or the child's being born, right? And then we move right into Breathe. Mm-hmm. Hey, breathe in the air. Don't be afraid to care. Guidance of the mother giving children, giving the child about the world. Don't be afraid to care. Throughout this song, the mother's kind of instilling what was maybe instilled about her, about society. That productivity is what adds value. Having raised the child, she sends him off into the world, and then the race begins with On the Run. Mm-hmm. So here we go. This song draws light to another rhythm of life, which is footsteps. So traveling for work and life in airports and train stations may be something everyone's done, but no one notices all the footsteps around us, which create a rhythm in everyday life. All right? So long last, a race seems to come to a close when the person is awoken by clocks, effectively waking them up from the rat race they were in. So time's the song where he realizes his life has been essentially a race he was duped into taking part in by society. The comfort of being an adult results in the death of his dreams or the death of his ego. He is now a cog in the machine and a willing participant to society's progress. So then we get into The Great Gig in the Sky, which is an ode to death of the character's true spirit and dreams, thinking about, eternity or what happens after you die. So money starts with another common rhythm of life, earning money and spending money, right? Mm-hmm. The person no longer drives the economy by being a producer of goods, but is now a slave to money. So then we get into Us and Them, the first of an old age portion of the album. So the character has his dreams, he ran the race and is now old. He has his money and his friends, there's nothing left for him to accomplish on earth, essentially retired. So the last three songs can maybe be viewed as like one whole concept. So the onset of dementia and the inevitable death, Any Color You Like. We talked a little bit about that, right? Mm-hmm. Likened to the onset of this person likened it to the onset of dementia because of delayed piano part. I don't know. You can read into that what you want. But then we get into, the lunatic in the brain damage is the person himself. Lunatic is in the hall. The lunatic is in my head. He has become another old person, maybe in a hospital. So some of the lyrics, the paper folds their folded faces to the floor, and every day the paper boy brings more. This person equated it to the paper is money, which is why that has brought them there and what's keeping them there. They have used their own money to drive them insane and to keep them insane. It's super deep stuff. It's like, I know you like to get in this. It took me a while to even kind of decipher some of these things.
Yeah.
But Eclipse is where the person comes to terms with dying. The whole song is a list of some things that the listener realizes will all get along just fine after he is gone. And then the song ends as the man is dying, listening to his heart beat softer and softer until it's gone.
It all sounds good. I don't want to think about it. It's like, whoa, this is heavy.
You're trying to
let me
figure
listen
out
to the music.
What song are you at now, Lance? So you
Let me
maybe
back
at
up.
any color you like phase of your life?
Yeah,
or what?
right. Yeah.
That's a good question.
But I had a thought about
Maybe we
that.
should all,
Yeah, I had a thought about that, looked it up, and this guy had this big diatribe. So I kind of distilled it down, even though it was a little long. So sorry about that. But it kind of confirmed a little bit more of, I think this could kind of be, the arc of an entire life.
Yeah.
So
I think I need a Learjet.
yeah, there you go. Nice. Any final thoughts, gentlemen, before we get into our ratings?
It's a good one.
yeah, it's a classic. It is maybe the classic.
The classic.
So far, I think this is probably the biggest album we've done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kind of foolish of us to try to tackle it.
A little bit.
It's
I
so
was
big.
a little intimidated by all the
Yeah.
research and items I was bringing up, going, man, I could be watching a whole lot of videos
Oh, man.
and reading a whole lot of articles, and holy cow.
Yep.
There's so much written about it because it is so big.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that, I think it's time to give our personal rating of this album from 0 to 10. So where do you guys stand on this one? Let's shoot with Lance first.
Even though this is one of the top selling albums of all time, even though millions of people love this album, even though it's iconic and everybody's got a Prism t-shirt with the
Just Brian.
colors of the
Quit pointing
rainbow.
at me. You got four fingers pointing back at yourself when you do that.
Let me count. Oh, jeez, I guess you're right, Brian.
You still got them all.
Now you blew my mind again.
Oh, that's such a deep episode, man.
I was being really serious here now.
All right, go ahead.
Sorry.
Well, you shouldn't have pointed
Sorry,
at me.
let's bring it back down for Lance.
I was pointing at your shirt that you're wearing tonight.
Thank
you.
That's what I was referring to. Even though it's everywhere, and you can probably walk into Kohl's tonight and buy a Pink Floyd t-shirt.
Yeah.
And you want to say, I don't want to give this a great album because it's everywhere. Or I don't want to give this a great rating because it's everywhere. It's in your face. It's like Michael Jackson Thriller, but it isn't like Michael Jackson Thriller in any way. It's a 10. It's weird to give an album a 10. I think I gave one before.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a 10 plus.
Our rating system doesn't go that high, but okay.
The more we do these things, these reviews, some of them are just going to stand out because they're so epic. It's like a epic opera. It's like a super great movie, that iconic movie. And it has a life unto itself. So it's a 10. You sit down, you don't get sick of listening to this album. And it endures. It almost sounds like something you should worship or something. So I'm not, and I'm not suggesting that in any way, but it's just one of those albums that you can go back to and enjoy in different ways, even though you've probably memorized every lyric and every nuance in the music. It lives. So there you go.
Brian, how do you feel about the Church of Floyd?
Yeah.
I am bowing down. One of the early albums that I bought as a kid, loved it, listened to it all the way through. Typically, I wasn't dropping the needle on certain songs. It was to listen to as a whole. Mm-hmm. Just absolutely loved it. And I mean, Lance kind of said it all. So it's an easy 10 for me.
Yeah, good.
There's not a bad song on here. There's nothing that I skip. It just lives on and lives on. Even though it dies at the end, it lives on.
So for me,
I could still listen to it. I listen to it not all the time, but multiple times a year I listen to this.
Yeah.
So for me,
Still.
are you?
I can keep.
No, go. No, you go.
You go.
I knew you were going to keep doing that.
Like when you're both talking on speaker cell phones.
Yes. Yeah.
What'd you say?
And
No, you go.
no, go. All right. We got to get this thing wrapped up.
In all seriousness, Dave.
Zipped it up.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dave.
Give us a rating.
This isn't the Pink Floyd album I listen to the most, but anytime I will listen to this, I can listen to it all the way through, and I'm not skipping anything. Mm-hmm. And I think that says a lot. I think, like both of you guys, it's a favorite Pink Floyd album, and there isn't a bad song on here. I can't. What do you critique on this? Well, this one went on a little long. Well, did it really? I mean,
yeah,
they're all just so well done. And there's not a lot of thematic albums that I have in a collection, mostly Pink Floyd, maybe like a Queensryche or something, like this. I will listen to this album start to finish if I'm doing it. It's an easy 10 for me as well. That's the first 10 I've given, I think, actually.
it is.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
But how dare you compare it to Queensryche?
Thematically.
Did you-
It was like
Just-
thematically.
Just joking with you.
Yeah.
When Operation Mindcrime was that the one?
Yeah.
When that came out, my first thought is like, oh, this is the heavy metal Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah. Totally.
I didn't like it, but I was like, that's what they're trying to do.
I
They're
was
trying
heavy metal Wall, but
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah. I was going to say the other thing about Dark Side of the Moon is I can still listen to it now because I've listened to it a bunch of times again for this.
Yeah.
I'm still hearing stuff that I don't remember or I never heard. Like, oh, there was a little something there that I never
Little
caught
surprising
before.
stuff, yeah.
Yeah. I was just listening earlier today. I can't remember what song it was, but I heard like a little whistling in the background, like someone was whistling. I'm like, what? I can't remember where it was, but yeah, it was just very faint. There's a little thing, and so
That was me outside
still
your office.
It may have been.
I forgot to read our final end quote, by the way.
Oh yeah, you said you had like 4 endings.
Yeah, I had 2.
Okay.
The end quote, to wrap up the album here, I'm going to read a quote from a 2006 interview with Roger Waters. When asked if he felt his goals had been accomplished in the studio after recording this album, he said, "When the record was finished, I took a reel-to-reel copy home with me, and I remember playing it for my wife then, and I remember her bursting into tears when it was finished. And I thought, this has obviously struck a chord somewhere. And I was kind of pleased by that."
Yeah.
When you've done something, certainly if you create a piece of music, you then hear it with fresh ears when you play it for somebody else. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I thought to myself, wow, this is a pretty complete piece of work. And I had every confidence that people would respond to it.
When did he say
was
this? Right before the re-release of the 50th anniversary.
It was like 20 years ago.
Marketing
What'd you say,
genius.
2006?
Yeah, yeah. All right, guys, it's time for Remember When, a segment where I ask Brian and Lance their thoughts about something we grew up with but may no longer be around today. Today's item, which I'm guessing a number of our listeners had on their Christmas lists, the Atari 2600 home video game system. Did you own one? I'm sure you maybe had a friend. Did you own one? And what are some of your favorite games?
Yes.
Brian
we
owned
owned
one.
it. It was a Christmas present.
Nice.
Christmas Eve from my aunt and uncle in Hawaii. And they sent it to us, to our family, and my cousins. So we had to week on, week off, week on, week off.
Oh,
So we had to
Shared
share it back and forth
Yep.
for a while. And then after a while, you get kind of burned out on it. But
Yeah.
we had it. Eventually, that one broke, probably because we're transporting it between each other for all these times.
Those delicate chipboards,
And then I remember my parents got us a new one, probably in 2 or 3 years later
Okay.
or something. And I remember too, for some reason, I was in my parents' room and I went to get something in my parents' closet and I opened it and I saw it in the corner.
Oh no!
I was like, oh, yes.
And
So I
then
was
you knew
just going,
Santa wasn't real.
Yeah.
But I was just as excited, even though I knew what it was when I opened it. I was like, yes. So, oh yeah, loved Atari. Favorite game? Adventure
Yep.
and Yar's Revenge
Oh, you played Yar's Revenge too, yeah.
and Pitfall. Those are probably my three faves.
I was too busy listening to Dark Side of the Moon to get into Atari.
I was wondering about that.
Honestly, didn't own one. Only owned one video game console as a
Pong.
kid growing up. Yeah, and it was Pong.
Yeah.
You are a little older.
Thank you. I am a little older. So I believe the neighbors might have had an Atari.
They did.
Yeah.
Of course they did.
What year was this about? Just
78 is, I think, when I remember getting it.
That sounds about right.
And this was the funniest thing. We got this. Of course, we didn't really know much about it because it was so new at the time.
Probably saw a commercial and you're
Right.
like, all right, well.
So we get it.
Looked
And we're
fun.
we're just going nuts, you know.
Yeah.
And so we plug it in, and my dad and my uncle are playing. One of the games they gave us too is the basketball game.
Oh,
This is
yeah.
the one-on-one.
Yep.
And so my dad and my uncle Ted are playing this, not realizing that my uncle is the computer.
Oh, yeah.
So my dad is playing him.
Yes.
And the computer is just like killing my dad. And my uncle's just like going, man, this is great. I don't know how I'm doing this. It's like, well, you're not doing it.
I'm so good at this game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's easy.
I think I might have had a moment like that too on that stupid Pong game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it's like, wait, oh, somebody, yeah.
And so someone took a picture
was AI.
of us playing it, and just everyone in the room is just cracking up because, oh, man.
We didn't have an Atari right away when they were really popular. We got an Intellivision instead. And I think I mentioned this maybe on a previous
Yeah.
episode somewhere. But I think maybe a year after that or so, we got one. And, well, we had been playing, I think, on a neighbor's one before that. So we knew a bunch of games already. So Pitfall was a big one. River Raid,
Yeah.
that was a
Yeah,
great
that
one. Frogger,
Yeah.
and Dragster maybe.
What I liked about Frogger was it was pretty good, similar to the arcade
Yes,
game.
that was one of the
in Atari version.
Yes,
Yeah,
that was
like,
probably
wow,
the
this is
best
pretty good.
Atari version of an arcade game.
Yeah,
Because when you got into like Pac-Man and Donkey Kong, they blew.
the Miss Pac-Man version was pretty good.
I think they learned a lesson from the
Yeah.
Pac-Man because that was horrible.
And what an easy game, I would think,
Well,
to make. But
apparently not.
not.
No. Did you ever have the ET game?
I didn't. I had a friend who had it. I remember borrowing it, and I was like, "This is ridiculous. You
Yep.
can't even do anything. This is not fun."
It's not fun.
Probably played it for 5 minutes and gave it back.
Yeah.
Probably rode my bike right from there and said, "Keep it. Don't even let this in my house again."
It's famously a sucky game
Yeah.
that they buried like a big, huge.
In a dump. Yeah.
and
They
somebody
actually-
discovered them again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to wonder what I was
Completely
doing
flopped.
in '78 that I didn't have video games.
Listening to Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon and
Yeah,
smoking.
well,
no?
Probably no. The Wall was '79. Anyway, I was listening to music.
Yeah.
I was buying stereo stuff already at that
Yeah.
age.
Getting your ears blown out by AC/DC.
Back in Black, not Back in Black, but Highway to Hell was out and about then.
Yeah.
Whatever did it for you, buddy.
You know what was big for me then? Probably Styx, Steve Miller Band. that
Oh,
sort of
not
thing.
really literally playing with sticks.
Not playing with
No.
Styx.
Okay.
STYX.
Pick up sticks?
Pick up sticks. Tiddlywinks.
Moving on.
All right, guys, that will do it for today. In our next episode, which will be coming out on New Year's Day, we will not be having an album review.
Oh.
I know, it's going to be lame.
What were you going to say?
Instead,
It's not like we had to bleep you out there for a second.
did I say a bad word?
It's not like you were starting
Almost.
to.
Almost.
Son
All right. Instead, I'll be asking the guys some rock and roll trivia questions from the 70s and 80s.
Oh, fun.
Yes.
It's going to be so much fun, guys. And all of you listening can play along too.
All right.
Prizes? No, we don't have prizes. Sorry. If you missed our previous episode, we each gave a listing of our top 5 Christmas songs, well, for this year.
Yeah.
Right? Because they could be 5 different songs next year.
Yep.
So go back and listen to that one.
If you're listening to this soon enough, you'll still be able to listen to that before Christmas.
That's right. I think for all of us, it was really tough narrowing it down to a handful of songs and even choosing an order.
Yes.
So if you haven't listened to it yet, go check it out and see if you agree with our lists or have a suggestion on what we may have missed.
Give us your list.
Yeah, let us know.
Hey, friends of When Records Ruled, or as insiders call us, WRR.
They do?
I hear it all the time.
Yeah. If you've enjoyed this episode or any of our other episodes, or tolerated it, or we're forced to listen to it, whatever, do us a favor.
Really selling us.
We really need a favor. Click share on whatever platform you're listening to, even if it's a reel-to-reel tape, like Roger Waters does.
I gotta get busy on converting this to reel.
Send the episode link to friends, family, incarcerated individuals that have nothing.
Oh my gosh! Oh man!
Hey, we'll take anybody.
We really will.
Anybody.
Yeah. Just share away, okay?
Share away.
we need some more listeners.
Oh, I'm crying.
Me too. It's been a long day, a long week, a long life. But
Yes.
we're making it through, just it's like they do on this. What is this? Anyway.
So, yeah. It's a CD.
Okay.
Are you done? Brian, go.
I think any listeners out there who have some spare incense, I think you should send it to Lance.
Yes.
Please do.
He's going to need it. He needs our help.
Man. All right, we'd appreciate if you'd leave us a review of the show.
The lunatic is on the show.
Oh, it's he is. He is definitely on the show. Get off the show. Anyway, if you could rate us with as many stars as you possibly can,
5 million.
that would be
Rate
great.
Brian and Dave. Don't rate me, please.
Yeah, we'd appreciate that. And give us any of your feedback. Most of us can take it. You can also leave us any comments on Instagram or Facebook. Follow us at When Records Ruled, WRR, as the lunatic would say. There, you can see all sorts of pictures and get some, check out our playlist of the things we've talked about. And you'll have a good time there.
Do it.
Yeah.
Just be nice. We do this for nothing. For laughs.
Well, just remember this. We're not professional music critics.
Obviously not.
We're just 3 guys who like talking music.
And laughing.
That's
Yeah.
right. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next time.